I've got it, the recording going now.
Okay. So first things we're gonna do is you said it was a 2-to-1 ratio, right?
That's what I have in all my notes.
Okay.
Hmm.
And does it say which one's the 2 and which one's the 1?
It would be the Greg Daily too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so first you make copies of both of them.
That's not strictly necessary, it just makes it easier so I can do everything all in one. Actually, instead of doing, I've made 2 copies of the wrong thing, have I? No, I've just opened one. There we go. All right, and next we're gonna actually do another copy of the Greg Daily. And this one is gonna be our 2-to-1. Okay, and then we're gonna add, well, silica is a duplicate here, so we are going to add 5 lines. And that's gonna be our Fritz 3134. That is 10.05. And our Fritz 195 is 7.8. And silica is 7.05 plus 13.2. It's 20.25.
Mhm.
We've got OM4 is 6. Carbonate is 1.8. Teal is 0.3.
So this changed it from the original percentages to something else, huh? Oh, is that like going into half or no?
This one is roughly 2/3. We
Okay,
could get more precise than that.
got
And this
it.
one is roughly 1/3. And so
Ah,
this one is 99 parts now.
okay, okay.
And you could do that a variety of different ways. You could have this one be 200 and this one is 100, and we just combine it into that. The important thing is these numbers. And so now we're gonna do, let's do a new recipe because I like to organize my materials, and we'll give us 10 lines. We'll do it like this. And I'm gonna have both Frit 3110 and Custer Feldspar because that gives us finer control over the amount of alumina we're adding with that. And it also gives us control over our ratio of potassium to sodium.
Okay. So you're saying let's not lose those two. Is that what you mean? Like we want
Mhm.
those two in there. That's good because I have a really big bag of 3110 that I would use for nothing else, I think. So
Oh, good. We'll still have a use for it.
great.
And then of our 2 boron sourcing Fritz, I prefer 3195 because it
Okay.
is less soluble and gives the glaze a longer shelf life.
Okay. Like instead of 3134, like we don't need them both. Is that what you're
You
saying?
don't need them both. They
Oh,
do roughly the same thing. There is times when it's necessary to have both. This isn't going to be one of those times.
okay.
And it's possible to choose one and then realize that you have chosen the wrong one and need to switch to the other one
Okay.
mid-adjustment. Um, the thing that would come up in that is if when you're using 3195, you find that you have too much alumina and there's no other way to remove as much as you need to. That's when you would need to switch either partly or all the way to 3134 instead of 3195.
So we'll be able to see that in the calculations. That's not something we're going to wait and test and then change. Okay. Great.
And then my preference of choosing OM4 and EPK as a clay source. Also, we need to stick whiting in there, actually. Usually I have these in a specific order. I do my alkali metals and then my alkali earths and then my boron, my silica, my clay, my colorants. And so we can also change that manually by saying, no, I want this to be 2, this to be 4. There we go.
Nice.
And actually, this will be 4 and this will be 3. I'm very particular. It doesn't have to be this. It's fussy.
I understand. It's like just kind of keeps things organized in your mind, right? To have them
Yeah,
in a certain
if
order.
it's all in a jumble, then I forget that whiting is in there, and that's convenient. But I'm not going to forget where whiting is if it's in my system.
We have 2 number 1s. Do you see that? For
We do
31.
have 2 number 1s. We can
Yeah.
adjust that because I
Okay.
don't really care which alkali earth comes first. It's
Okay.
fine. And then I'm putting bentonite in there because with the choice of 3195, we can end up with a slightly low amount of clay. And so if we have both clay and bentonite in there, then we can make sure that it's still a glaze that suspends nicely.
Okay. So you don't add the bentonite after, you're putting it in as like an ingredient, not as an
Absolutely,
addition.
every time, because it is a clay in itself
Right.
and it will affect the glaze like a clay.
Uh-huh.
And then we have rutile and I have not enough lines. So now we close this and see if I've typed everything correctly. I have, because all of these are blue. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and put 10 in all of these.
10%?
Yep,
Wow.
that just gives us a starting spot.
Okay, great. That's
And
cool.
then we only probably want 0.6 or so red iron oxide. So we're gonna dial that back
Mhm.
and dial back the rutile to a smaller amount.
Mhm.
And how much copper do we have? We have I should also open this. It's going to jump around wildly while we're getting vaguely in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And then we'll get closer and closer, dial things in.
And mostly what are you watching down there? The
Mostly I'm comparing these two
Okay.
sets of numbers.
Okay.
Like right now we are calcium deficient. And right now we also are too low on our sodium. We're a little low on everything because right now we're taking it up with an absurd amount of cobalt that will
Okay, yeah, let's get that out of there. Let's see, whiting was originally just 8%. And what else has the calcium in it?
There is a little guest calcium in 3110 and Custer feldspar and Frit 3195.
Okay,
Mostly whiting is going to control our calcium.
right.
Okay. So since we are low on sodium, I'm going to add that first.
Oh, okay.
Get that vaguely close-ish. And that has also boosted our calcium a little bit because of the guest calcium in 3110.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we need just a little tiny bit more. That's already too much, but we've got plenty more to add, so. I added 5% silica. Let's add another 2%. We're still low. And if my brain was working better, I would be explaining this in more detail. But right now, you have to deal with Rae who's getting over a cold. So
That's all right. That's all right. I'm kind of hanging in here and I'm looking at the
Mhm.
numbers and like I would have no idea how to do what you're doing. Um, this is how I can understand why people would use target and solve because it'll
Yeah,
pretty much do this for you, right?
yeah. If you have target and solve,
Yeah.
you just would put in this essentially, and then
Uh-huh.
you could say, make my list of these ingredients, do that. That's
That's
very handy,
uh-huh.
but then you don't actually ever get a sense that this is a glaze that's in your control. You
Right.
don't think about, oh, I can decide how much bentonite there is. You're just like, and this is how much bentonite it told me I have.
Right, right.
So
Yeah. But I think that you can change something and say like don't touch this one, right? You can like
I don't
shift.
know enough about the target and solve. I know that if you're doing it like this, you can go in and say, don't change my colorants and my
Yeah.
bentonite because I've already got those honed in, but make the rest of this total 100.
Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
Does that.
I think that that's similar on
Mhm.
Blazy.
I like my numbers to be clean.
Yeah, me too. I hate those major like many percentage points.
Yeah, just
Can't stand it.
clean that up, and while we're at it, we'll name it.
Okay. So we're just looking for close here, right? Not exact. Or are you going to keep going until they're exact?
You're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep
Really?
going. I will sometimes try and get it to the point where these numbers, the molar percent, which has a
Yeah.
much higher precision than
Uh-huh.
the unity.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's what I've been looking at is the mole.
yeah.
Oh, that one.
I try and get those to like within point 0.1, which is about as close as you can get.
Oh, really close. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mhm. A lot of people will just match the unity, and on Glazy, the only thing you can do is match the unity numbers
Uh-huh.
because it doesn't just have the nice option to have your mole percent visible there.
Hmm.
And the reason that I display both is because the Unity is a lot easier to parse. It's a lot easier to look at, the 0.28 alumina and know that you have a low to moderate amount of alumina in this glaze than it is to evaluate what 5.79 means.
So 0.28 alumina, you're saying that's kind of low.
It's medium low. It's not,
Mhm.
problematically low, but it is low enough to let phase separation happen without absurd amounts of boron. It's low
Uh-huh.
enough to make a reactive glaze.
Okay. Hmm.
And what we're gonna add now is boron because we don't have enough of that. We've done it. Okay.
Oh, those arrows just bring it up or down a number. That's what.
Yeah, and this is the amount you can put in,
Okay, set it.
what your step is going to be
Great. Okay, got
on
it.
that. And so now in adjusting that, we have oversupplied our calcium. So we can run that back a little bit, bump up our sodium. We also have too much rutile. I must have bumped that or entered it wrong. That's something I noticed because of this here. Now we have too much boron again. And we have a little too much alumina. And a little too much silica. And right now, this is about as close as you would be able to get it on Glazy. Like you would have this,
Mhm.
and you would say, yeah, those numbers are all pretty darn close.
Pretty close, yeah.
Um, but we have finer control because we have access to this, and so we know that the calcium is a slight, tiny amount off. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and what steps are you
Very.
willing to go in? I do 0.1% in my recipes. We could
Uh-huh.
do
Yeah, I can do point to point one decimal.
okay,
That's fine. Is that what
okay,
you mean? How many decimals are we going?
0.1.
Uh-huh.
And so that just bumps up that cobalt a little. those are all pretty close. We want a little more silica and alumina. And what we have too much of, we've got just a tiny bit more calcium than we want. We could do with a little, let's see, we don't have quite as the ratio of potassium to sodium that we want. Let's see how that does. Now we have too much clay again. Let's see, a little more potassium would be good for us. It's not strictly necessary to fuss the
Uh-huh,
ratio of
uh-huh.
sodium and potassium, especially in a glaze like this. It can be more important in like an iron red, where it's growing a very specific type of crystal, and it will grow a different type of crystal with a different alkali metal.
Uh-huh.
Usually they are so the differences are tiny nuances, so you can just look at this total number and say, yeah, we've got enough of the total combination
Okay.
of uh, sodium and potassium.
Okay, as opposed to looking at the ratio.
Mhm. Um,
It's the
it's
same
because we have
ratio.
both of them here that it's like this is an option for us to fuss. We can do that if we so choose. Still a little too much clay. That's getting closer. And we've thrown our boron out of whack because one of the guest materials of 3110 is a teeny pinch of boron.
Oh yeah, I think you were asking me. Oh no, you asked about lithium. We were
Yeah.
messing.
You were saying that this glaze crazes, and
Mm,
part of why it crazes is because it's got quite a lot of sodium and potassium, which are very high thermal expansion materials, and not a lot of silica and alumina. Like, it's not a problematically low amount, but it's enough that with the combined amount of sodium and potassium, you'll probably see it craze on a very large variety of bodies.
okay.
So if we wanted to, and you had a handy lithium source, what we could do is trade some of the sodium and potassium for lithium because lithium is a very low thermal expansion material.
Mm.
Lowering the coefficient of thermal expansion of your glaze makes it less likely to craze.
Okay, well, I would rather not use lithium. I have the tiniest little bit left, and I was saving it for like, some like birthday or something like that. I have some spodumene, but just all of the anything with lithium seems really expensive. But you listed some things that weren't spodumene and lithium that I had never heard of. What were the other things that you
Yeah,
said?
lepidolite and petalite.
Oh,
They are different lithium containing minerals. And in order of how much lithium they have, lithium carbonate has the most, and then
mhm.
it's spodumene under that. And then I believe it's lepidolite and petalite below
Okay,
that. And so you have to add kind of more the lower you get on this tree.
right.
Um, there are some pluses and minuses to all of them. With lithium carbonate, you don't have any friends coming with, so you can just add that, and you are only adding that.
Mhm,
And it makes it easy to get a glaze that doesn't have a lot of extra silica and alumina in it.
mhm,
And then spodumene is kind of it's like nepheline cyanide if the nepheline cyanide had lithium instead of sodium and potassium, and so it doesn't supply quite as much silica and alumina as a feldspar does, but it provides quite a lot more than lithium carbonate. That it provides a good chunk of them when lithium carbonate doesn't provide any.
okay, I
Yeah.
gotta slow down and ask that question again. So you said spodumene is kind of like Nefsai in that,
Mhm.
except for that it doesn't have as much silica and alumina. Is that what you said?
It's kind of like Nefsai in that Nefsai is what's called a feldspathoid. A
Mhm,
feldspar has a very particular arrangement of how much alkali metal there is to how much silica and alumina there is.
Okay.
That's to get to the technical, chemical, geological sense of feldspar. A
Okay.
feldspathoid is like a feldspar in that it provides all those things, but it has more alkali metal than the ratio that makes it a feldspar. So, spodumene is not a feldspar, and nepheline cyanide is not a feldspar.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the ratio of lithium to sodium and or to silica and alumina that spodumene has is similar to the ratio of silicon alumina to sodium and potassium that nepheline cyanide has.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
have a glaze that has nepheline cyanide in it, you can fairly successfully just take the nepheline cyanide out, put spodumene in its place, and you have a glaze that will have pretty darn similar chemistry using lithium instead of sodium potassium,
Okay. And then a lower expansion. Is that
and
right?
then a lower expansion.
Okay. Okay. One day I'll understand that. I got a little bit of it. Every time I kind of graze a little bit of
Oh
information,
yeah,
like,
that's how it goes. You just get a tiny bit more in your
yeah,
brain every time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Even
eventually you're
just
there.
putting, even just putting spodumene and nepheline cyanide into the same kind of category, and spodumene is like lithium to sodium, potassium, and felds or nephsi is sodium and potassium to silica and alumina. Is that, did I get
Um,
that wrong?
Nepsi, they both have silica and alumina. That's
Right.
the thing
Okay.
that makes it rock, pretty much.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Nepsi is the one that has sodium and potassium. Spodumene is the one that has lithium.
Lithium. Okay. Got it. Got it.
Hmm.
Got it. And lithium is an alkaline earth. Is that right?
Lithium is an alkali metal, so
A metal. Okay.
sodium, potassium, and lithium
And
will be the
lithium.
alkali metals that we use in ceramics.
Uh-huh.
And those are all pretty interchangeable with respect to color development and glazes and glaze behavior.
Uh-huh.
The alkali earths, it's calcium, magnesium, strontium, barium, and zinc is an honorary alkaline earth, are much less interchangeable. If you change those, you dramatically change what the glaze is doing, how the colorants will respond.
Okay.
We're just kind of nuancing this at this point, just getting it very, very close.
I'm glad we're recording this because I can rewatch it. I can let it go in several times.
And that's really the best way to do it. That's how everyone has to do it. It's very normal not to just like have this all absorb into your brain. In fact, I think it would be
Mhm.
a little abnormal to just get it all on the first
Just
pass.
understand it. I think,
Yeah, you build up your framework, and as you understand more of this piece, then more of that piece starts to make sense. And so
yeah.
having your resources collected so that you can go back over them and get a new piece each time is very useful.
This might wind up being my contribution to people who have a hard time understanding glaze chemistry because what I just got, like what just came to me was I need to make characters out of them. Like I need them to have personalities, like to anthropomorphize them. So I like understand them and it's like these two, when they're together, the energy is like this. And then if you add
Mhm.
one of these, then it's like that, you know. I think
Mhm.
thinking about humans or even animals or something like that is gonna, I need to do that. I'll
I'm
just,
a lousy chess player, but the way I think about them is chess pieces, and that you
okay.
have
Uh-huh.
your certain, these ones behave this way, but then from that, the amount of combinations on your board is literally infinite. So
Uh-huh.
you just have whatever game you're going to have out of moving them. It's again very lousy chess player, but I'm better at
Uh-huh.
glaze chess.
Glazed chess. So are silica and alumina the king and the queen? Or is it not like that? Do they not get assigned that way?
Oh, I mean, they, that would be a perfectly fine way to assign them.
Uh-huh.
They're
The king is alumina, the
the
queen is
king
silica.
would be silica definitely
Oh, the
because
king is
silica
silica.
makes up the bulk of the glaze. Like looking at all of these, silica is what what glass is,
Uh-huh.
and you can make a glass that's just silica, and that's what fused silica is crystalline quartz that has been passed through an electrical beam that's hot enough to just melt it as it is and make pure silica glass. And so I would say that's definitely the king. This is what matters most,
Okay, yeah, without which nothing, huh?
without which nothing. Uh,
Okay.
there's exceptions and to everything. Everything in glaze is
Uh-huh.
super contextual. And so like if you're doing raku, the silicon alumina stop being important, really.
Mhm. Mhm.
The thing that you want is not too much of either of them. And so it's normal to have raku glazes where boron is your main glass former,
Right, right.
or even that it hardly has a glass former and you're just mostly sodium.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there's a lot of different ways that things can be. Um, for most of the glazes that we're going to make in ceramics, silica is what the glass is. And then there's in the glass network, there's what's called network formers and network modifiers, and also things that are both a network former and a network modifier. That's called an amphoteric.
Mm.
And so silica is definitely a network former. It isn't a modifier, it just makes a glass network. And
Mhm.
then various things you add to it disrupt this glass network in such a way that it can make it fall apart into different phases, like our
Okay.
phase separated
Uh-huh.
glazes,
Uh-huh.
or make it melt at a lower temperature. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so that's kind of what we're doing as we play with glaze is figuring out what we're doing to our glass network to make it do interesting stuff.
Cool. That I'm starting to understand. That one, that somehow that goes in. Network formers, network modifiers. Silica is the former, and everything else, all the other, or many of the things are modifiers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Other network formers are boron. Boron is the lowest thermal, or no, lowest melting network former.
Uh-huh.
And so that you can make a borosilicate glass all on its own. You can make a boron glass all on its own. Interesting side tangent. Um, the biggest user of Gersley borate used to be the US government. And
Really?
what the US government was using the Gersley borate for is they would line a massive pit with it out in the Nevada desert. And they would detonate a nuclear charge in the middle of this pit.
Whoa.
And the first little bit just gets vaporized, but then as it melts it, it forms this large glass bubble. And boron glass
Oh.
is a good insulator for radioactivity. And so now there are all these massive boron glass bubbles of radioactivity under the Nevada desert.
Oh my God. That's wild. And then they stopped doing that?
And then they stopped doing that, and potters were just getting like the tiny tail fraction of this huge use of Kersley borate. And so when the actual user of Kersley borate stopped getting it, they were like, well, no more of that. But we've been
Right.
just eating the last little 0.01% for
Right.
2 decades now.
Wow. So in the Nevada desert, there's glass bubbles under the ground. Is that right?
Mhm.
That you can,
Full of radioactivity.
oh Jesus. It's like protects it. It like seals the
Yeah,
radioactivity.
the boron glass is very effective at sealing in radioactivity in a way that sodium soda lime glass is not.
Okay. Wow.
Hmm.
That is a very interesting little tip or like or piece of information trivia.
Little aside, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's take a look at these numbers. I've been off in La La Land. Oh, they're looking very similar, aren't they?
Hmm.
You got it. You did it. There's a little magnesium. I guess it's not really that different.
It's 0.03. It's not going to make or break us.
Yeah. Okay. Looks good to me.
also think it looks good. We'll
Yeah.
offset. So, yeah, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get.
Great.
Hmm.
It got more expensive.
It did. It got more expensive,
Is
and
that because of the Fritz?
let's
'Cause-
see. What made it more expensive? We have changed so that I've used the copper carbon cobalt carb that link to my materials pricing. These ones use carbonate that link to the uh, chemistry, but not the materials pricing. There we go. It's only 8 more cents.
Okay. What was I going to ask you about that? That I just had a thought about this. We were looking at the cobalt and the copper. Anyway, it'll come back to me. If it does, I'll mention it.
Mm.
Oh, I was going to ask you about Custer. So I have Custer in all my old recipes, and I still have like some backstock of Custer. But when I'm run out, I'll switch over to like G200 probably, or Mahavir, or whatever's available. Then, do you have anything to say about these feldspars and the differences and how much it's gonna change my recipes?
How much it's going to change your recipes kind of depends on how sensitive your recipes are.
Okay.
Like very sensitive tea dust glazes, very sensitive iron reds. Those
Uh-huh.
might see a pretty substantial difference. If you have like a solid glaze, almost no difference at all. Like
Okay.
it's not gonna matter. Um, and then Mahavir is significantly more expensive than G200 EU, but in a one-to-one swap ends up more similar to Custer than G200 EU. So if you don't want to fuss with the glaze and you want to make a one-to-one swap, it might be worth the price. If you
Okay.
don't mind fussing with the glaze, then like always use the G200 EU. You don't actually gain anything besides ease from using Mahavir in its place.
Okay. Okay. So G200 is less similar molecularly, so would need some tweaking. And Mahavir, I can pretty much swap it, but it's going to be a little more expensive.
Yeah.
1 to 1, um, more expensive. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's pull up.
Oh.
And so this just goes into the tiny nuances of something that tripped me up with the tea dust glazes is this tiny bit of change in calcium made a difference in how much of a certain type of pyroxene crystal was doing.
Mm-hmm.
That they're really pretty similar. Um, I don't use Mahavir enough to say a whole lot about it because
Hmm.
I have my G200 and
Yeah.
my job is to make glazes that don't cost an arm and a leg.
Right. Me too.
So, so I very rarely use Mahavir for anything. Um, so really, G200 is close enough for me.
Go to G200. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
And it is going to take me a while to work through my Custer. So by the time I get there, although I'm sharing these recipes with my students, and so they probably don't have like two or 300 pounds of Custer
Mhm.
feldspar. So anyway,
As
it's
you're
something to
making
think
that
about.
swap, I always just start 1 to 1 and see what, if
Yeah.
anything, it messes up.
Yes. Yeah.
Usually you can get pretty close.
Hmm.
And if it does mess something up, it might be a different thing each time. Like, had a gentleman who was having a problem with this tiny amount lower silica and alumina causing crazing in a glaze that was right on the edge. And so the solution to that is going to be different than the solution to your tea dust glaze having too much calcium. So
Hmm.
seeing what has gone wrong is an important part of getting to the right glaze again.
Right. Right. Sheesh. It's so complicated.
It's so
Not for
complicated.
you. Not for you.
No, it's so complicated for me, but that's what I love about it.
Right.
It's-
Yeah,
It
that's
it
great.
is very, very complicated, and I will never have all of the answers, and there will always be something new to learn, and I would
Hmm.
get bored if it was any other way.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Do we want to?
So is this our new recipe? We got a recipe now?
I think we do. I think this is it. I think it looks
What
nice.
should I do? What do I do? Ah! Should I
You
take a
take it and you
screenshot
mix it
or
in your studio, and you see if
let me
it's nice.
let me how do I actually get it like physically? Should I write it down? I'll take a screenshot.
Yeah,
See,
screenshot probably
it's this
easiest.
simple one, right? It's this
Mhm.
one. Simple. Yeah. Okay, I got a screenshot. Hey, that's so
Just
fun that I can mix up a recipe of this. That's
mhm.
like amazing. Instead of mixing the two and uh yeah, and then so I'll do that and just mix it up as is, and then we'll see where it's at compared to the original, and then we can make changes from there, I guess. Yeah.
Mhm. And then
Okay.
just for example's sake, this is
Oh,
what
good. Uh-huh.
switching to 2200 does. Not very much.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, like this number is ever so slightly different. There's
Yeah,
ever
and the
so slightly
sodium.
less alumina and
Uh-huh.
ever so slightly more calcium. And besides that, it's negligible.
Pretty much the same. Yeah.
Pretty much the same.
Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, you did it. I should
This is
see if I can do it with Target and Solve, on my own.
oh,
I'm not very
it's
good with
easy
using
to
that, but
do with Target and Solve, really. Like
it's
as soon as
easy.
you get your mega recipe, then
Uh-huh.
all you have to do is pick your materials and say, make it this, and it will do it for you.
I'm screenshotting the mega recipe too.
Mhm,
Let me make sure I know which is what I know. I'll know, but
mhm.
this is the
Mega recipe has two more materials. Like
yeah.
if we didn't want to be super picky, we could probably leave out 0.3% rutile. I can't imagine it's doing that much.
Right?
Um, like we could replace that
Uh-huh.
with silica, since silica makes floaty glazes more floaty. But
Oh, I'll write that down. That's a language I can understand. Silica makes floaty glazes more floaty. That's great.
alumina makes floaty glazes less floaty.
Uh-huh. Okay, got
But if
that.
you
That makes sense.
raise alumina and you raise silica, you can make interesting things happen in that you don't fully suppress the amount of floaty that's developing, but you
Oh,
suppress the size of the particles that develop. And that's how blue is made in these floaty glazes, is that the particles become so small that they are the same size as one wavelength of blue light.
wow.
And if you're shooting for rutile blue can get a little complicated because there's so many things that suppress it, but you don't want to suppress it too much so that it's not doing enough floaty. But you do want the size to be small, so you can finagle blue for a long time.
So would this be considered a floating blue? Like what is the definition of a floating blue? That you
Uh,
have little droplets that you can see or that you can see the phase separation or
Floaty glazes I just think of as any phase separated glaze is
hmm
a
hmm
floating glaze pretty much, and that's not strictly true, and that most people wouldn't consider a chun glaze a floating glaze, even though that has a different type of phase separation. A chun glaze is where there's tiny immiscible spherules of glass that don't combine with the rest of the glass network.
uh-huh. And
And
they look like
oh, at the
droplets in the
microscopic level, yes, they
little
do look like
little crystal.
little
Oh.
spherules. Um, and those particles act like Rayleigh scattering. The ones where the particle is the same length as a blue wavelength is Tyndall scattering. So two different types of scatter get you slightly, very, very slightly different blues out of your different phase separated glazes. Um, what were we saying? We were talking about what a floating blue is.
Floating, and yeah, and I think you were
Mhm.
mentioning chun glazes or.
Yeah, so I think a floating glaze, it's a pretty broad umbrella category glaze where,
Mhm.
if it phase separates, it's floaty. We'll call it floaty.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and then floating blue tends to more specifically refer to a glaze that has cobalt and some other helper ingredient in it
Uh-huh.
along with it, because there's this, very popular staple of studios that's the floating blue glaze.
Right.
And that is kind of what people are always going to think of. And that staple glaze is actually a really interesting glaze. It uses high boron, high silica, high alumina, and all of those, and high sodium and potassium. That's what I was going to say. And
Hi,
all of
everything.
those together make it so that the glaze can be in a region where it will develop cobalt tight knit greens. You want the alumina to be fairly high. So usually when the glaze is high enough alumina to develop these cobalt tight knit greens, it is also out of the range where phase separation happens. But if you
Hmm.
raise boron and sodium quite a lot, you can push the region where phase separation happens to overlap the region where cobalt titanate greens happen.
Wow.
And that's what the traditional floating blue is.
Everything high.
Everything high. Yes. And
Tight
an
knit
example,
greens, cobalt tight
cobalt
knit greens.
titanate greens. Yeah. And you can see an example of this on Glazy in Sue McLeod's sapphire glaze. I believe it's
Hmm.
called Cedar Hill Sapphire or something in there.
Okay.
And where it breaks green on the edges.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have a
that's where,
sapphire glaze that does
yeah,
that.
that's a
Maybe
cobalt
it's the
titanate
same.
green.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, my sapphire glaze, I can't remember what it was about it, but when I looked at at the UMF graph or the stall chart, it was like really in a weird place compared to everything else. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's
It's
probably
like
something wrong with.
it's almost
Uh-huh.
up close to the matte line. Like
Uh-huh.
it's got such high alumina compared to any other floating glaze. So that
Okay,
it
yeah.
can be in the region where cobalt titanate greens happen.
But still be a completely glossy glaze, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The matte line is just one way to get a matte glaze, and
Mm-hmm.
that's specifically sort of overloading the balance of the glaze so that titanium has to precipitate out into crystals to make stability. And so that's one way that you can get matteness. You can also overload the glaze with zinc crystals, or you can overload it with titanium crystals. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of different ways where matte can be a thing.
Hmm. Cool. All right. I know that you have to go. I think you had to go around 4:30. Was that right? Didn't you say that?
I've got 10 more minutes, but
Oh, okay.
I
I won't. I'm curious. Do you know who Gwendolyn Yapolo is?
don't.
Gwendolyn. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen because uh, I love her. The little bit that I know about Glaze, I've kind of learned from her.
Mhm.
Uh, and she does something with crystals. Can I share mine? It's kind of like yeah, I'll share it so you can tell me what's going on here. 'Cause I know she uses a lot of rare earths for color, but I still think that this type of, this kind of like little spotty thing that's going on. Do you have an idea of what that is?
I've seen that in a lot of glazes that are high in zinc, but also
Mm-hmm.
not like the glazes that are traditionally considered, zinc crystalline glazes where they grow the huge flowers. I've seen
Right.
like little tiny baby seeds of those flowers. So a glaze that has a more normal amount of silica and alumina than one of those ones that grows the huge crystals. But I think
Okay.
zinc
Uh-huh.
would be able to do this kind
Do
of
that.
effect.
Okay. Everybody says don't use zinc. What do you think about zinc?
Why don't you zinc?
I
Zinc's
don't know. I guess maybe it's not that you shouldn't use zinc. Maybe it's if you're having trouble with a glaze, it might be the zinc.
I mean, if you're having trouble with the glaze, it could be any number of, like,
That's true.
anything on the ingredient list could be your problem child.
That's true. That's true.
The
Okay, so
Clay Art
zinc,
Center,
probably zinc.
oh, the Clay Art Center Frost series glazes are very high in zinc. Something
Mm-hmm.
that they might be referencing when they're saying zinc is a problem child is that zinc is both a very strong flux when combined with another non-magnesium alkaline earth like calcium, barium, strontium.
Hmm.
Uh, and So it's very runny. But unlike most of the materials that are very runny, it's also very high surface tension. So you can get glazes that would be more prone to blistering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
that
think
might
it
be.
was that kind of like a
Mhm,
surface problem. This
mhm,
is for flux sake, because like where I got that zinc is a problem. Often they're
mhm.
kind of making zinc the bad guy.
Matt Katz has an issue where he likes to make things for the soundbite as opposed to explaining the whole picture of
Mm,
things.
hmm. Hmm.
He's a little bit the opposite of me in that he's over reductive and he doesn't want to go into all of the side tangents.
Hmm.
So that's his trait, and it takes some getting used to. So take what Matt Katz says with a grain of salt and understand that there's always context and more particulars involved than he is going to bring into it.
Right, right. Because they want people to take their workshop and,
Yeah,
they don't want to give all the information away. Is that?
yeah. Well, and even in his workshop, I've taken all of his classes,
Hmm.
every single one. And even in his workshop, he does this because what they are selling is the illusion of certainty. The illusion of
Mm,
certainty and the illusion that there are rules that apply, and if you follow them, glaze will be easy and you will have success. And
hmm.
like, if you stay within his very narrow bubble of times that this is true, then
Right.
yes, you can follow his rules and make a good glaze and it will all work.
Uh-huh.
But the vast majority of what glaze is goes way outside this bubble. And there are times when what he says is completely the opposite of true. So, like,
Right.
if you actually want to explore the whole world of glaze, then he might be leading you astray. If you want
Hmm.
to just get a glaze that works, yeah, he'll get you a glaze that works.
I remember you and I talked about this around the flux ratio, where like when I heard
Mhm.
him say like the point 0.3 to point 0.7 is like the king of all
And
flux ratios,
he
and
harps on that one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, oh, change all my glazes to get that point 0.3 to point
Yep.
0.7. I went and reformulated everything. Not everything, but some
But
of my
like, he
glazes.
makes you feel like he oughta. And then
Uh-huh.
I also went through the same thing because he makes you feel like it's so important. And that then I just broke like so many glazes and made them worse. And it was like, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's actually a lot more to this than you were saying.
Right. It's more complicated,
Mm.
right? The more factors. I mean, there's with glazes, it just seems like there's just so many variables. Like,
Mhm. Everything is really deeply contextual that
mm,
you can't actually make any hardline rule that strictly applies. Like I was saying,
right,
like, silica is what makes glaze. Unless you're doing raku, in which case
right,
you're pretty much doing copper and tricks with it. So like it all it,
right.
no matter what you can say about glaze, there's a different area where it all falls apart.
Yeah. Well, you're an amazing teacher, and I am really glad that I, I'm so funny, I'm like the most disorganized person, and I'm trying to take notes, and my notes are just all over the place. Like it would be
Mm.
great if I was just a linear note taker and everything was written down, but you'd say something and I'd be like, oh, jot that little note down over here in the margins. So I think I need to go back and
Mm.
reorganize all my notes here from today. But
Well,
I'm so
rewriting your notes
glad.
is not a bad thing. I'm
No, it's
not a
great.
linear
Mhm.
talker, so being a linear
Mhm.
note taker will
Won't
probably
help.
be difficult with me.
Well, at least
Mhm.
if things were written in an organized way, then, you know, it's just easier for me to find. It's when I'm writing, it makes sense for me to put it in any small little bit of white space
Mhm.
that's left. But for when I go back to things, if when I see this, I start freaking out. I'm like, how am I ever supposed to
Right.
understand any of that? I can't even read the handwriting. So I have to, I actually
Mhm.
have to redo it soon. Or
And
typing is good.
the more you write something, the better it sticks in the brain too. So if you have
Exactly.
something scrawled once, it may or may not stick. If you organize it nicely, and next time, much more likely to stick.
Yeah, yeah, and rewriting it. That's why I write things down in the first place, even though we have this recording, like I write it
Mhm.
down because I know that it helps it get into my
Mhm.
understanding more deeply just by writing. So,
Mhm. And like
yeah.
when you go a layer beyond that, teaching something puts it really firmly in there because you
Oh
have to
yeah.
have it understood well enough that you can explain it and clarify it also if you don't like reach the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, there's no
that
way.
has made me a lot better at
hmm
understanding what I already know.
Yeah, I find that with wheel throwing, it's like I can kind of like just kind of make something happen.
Mm,
And even with measuring and everything, I can just do it in any which way. But if I'm trying to
mhm,
teach it, I have to come up with a system that's very repeatable, that's like the simplest system and easy for
mhm.
different types of learners to get. And yeah, so teaching is amazing.
I'm very lucky that I have many nice guinea pigs like you who are like willing to let me stumble over teaching them glaze chemistry badly so that eventually someday I will be a little bit cleaner and have a more organized system to present people.
Well, it's super clear that you understand what you're saying. Like that's really helpful because I feel like I can just completely trust you with it, and then it's kind of up to me to
Mm,
to make sense of what you said or ask clarifying questions, and yeah, yeah.
I'm
I'm
not
I'm
trying to
glad to
make
be your guinea pig.
I'm not trying to make you distrust me, but all of the experts on this subject will be wrong. Like
Uh-huh.
there are different things that we are wrong about. All of us have like it's like the blind man with the elephant. We are all feeling out our piece of
Mm,
the evidence, and we all have a
mm,
different piece. And what we are saying about what we have felt is true for the most part. We're
mm-hmm,
not giving you bullshit. And the larger picture is something that we none of us actually fully comprehend. So like
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
your job is not to trust one particular expert on what the elephant feels like, but feel out your own part of the elephant and
Right, right.
map your world of glaze as it is for
Yeah, yeah. I think, like I was saying before, like something like experiential, like either giving these elements, personalities,
you. Mhm,
or like on a more practical level, I really want to do like work with one glaze and eliminate one material out of each like if it has
mhm,
six different materials, then take one
mhm,
material out or double materials just to get
mhm,
it like a more felt sense of what they're actually doing.
mhm.
And
That's
that
one of the default exercises in Matt Katz's Understanding Glazes course that I believe is
hmm
on sale because he's doing a different reworked version of that. So if you
right.
want to take that, good time for it.
Okay.
And so
hmm
that's something that I would absolutely recommend doing. Um,
hmm
something that I don't do a lot of because most of my work is in very microfine neighborhoods around the
hmm
glaze. And so
hmm
like he's mapping out the whole space of like
hmm
very different, very different, very different, very different. And that gives you
Right.
a good like look at all of the possibilities that could
hmm
be with this
hmm
glaze. And then I think that it's he leaves things off before the step where you're like, well, I like that one a lot, but I wish this was different about it. And that's
Hmm.
where I kind of shine is like I want people to be able to have the control and really feel empowered to go and try that if their glaze is 90% there, to do the other 10%. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
cannot just land where you land and that's where you're stuck. You got
I
where you
know.
landed, and so therefore you have the ability to move in many other ways.
I've had this glaze, this green glaze that I've used forever that crazes. I mean, it really crazes pretty bad. But I've never done anything to it. Like I just like I've kind of thought about like, well, what would I do to change that? But I just keep mixing
Mm,
it and keep using it, and it's a pain in the ass, and I can't stand it. But I
mm.
love that green. So anyway, yeah,
Is
I
it,
need
is
I
it a
need some
fancy
empowerment
green?
there.
What's the
No,
this
it's
green?
it's it's like I call it apple green, and there's nothing special
Mm,
about it. It's just a nice tone of green. I just took
mm,
my a
mm,
clear base that I was using and added some chrome, like half a
mm,
percent of chrome, and it just turned out to this really nice green. But I need to solve the crazing issue, and also
mm, mm.
it settles it
Uh,
settles really badly, and I
if you
can't
have
stand that.
Yeah, if you have settling issues, first thing to try is always Epsom salt solution.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if you add enough Epsom salt solution, it will stop doing the settling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if that doesn't fix it, that's when a little bit of bentonite in place of some of the clay that's already in there would be
Uh-huh.
another good thing to try.
In place of it, as opposed to an addition, huh?
In place of a ball clay, maybe in addition with a kaolin, because kaolins are providing more alumina. You don't want to starve it of alumina, especially if you're trying to make it not graze. It gets. Mhm,
Okay, it does have kaolin, and I've been
mhm,
calcine. I calcined the kaolin, and that kind of. I've had all kinds of problems with this glaze. Like handling it wasn't nice. It was like kind of falling off the pot, and so that's
mhm.
why I started calcining the kaolin to
Are you
kind of like give
calcining
it a
all of the kaolin?
just in that one recipe.
Oh, don't calcine all of the kaolin. That's
Okay.
probably why it's settling. Actually, you need at least
Oh,
10% plastic uncalcined clay to suspend the glaze.
ah, you need 10% uncalcined cl clay to keep it in suspension. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, I
And
think it
like
probably did stay in suspension before I started calcining
yeah,
the
yeah.
Galen.
So yeah, if you calcine all of the clay, then there's nothing acting as a suspending agent. And 10% is
Ah,
kind of it's a rough number. Some kaolins like EPK might need more than that to properly suspend. And
okay.
some ball clays like OH5 ball clay, Old Hickory 5, don't actually need that much to suspend. They'll start doing it nicely at around 7%. So like
Oh,
it's a very rough number, but like
uh-huh.
depending on the clay that you're using,
Hmm.
you kind of want to shoot for like 10 to 20% because over 20%, it will dry slowly and it will have cracking on drying and flaking and
Yeah.
all that. And
Yes.
then under 10%, it will settle out. You've seen that.
Okay, that's what's happening to me is that I'm calcining it and it's making it all heavy and settle, basically, the calcining.
It's the calcining kills the plasticity of the clay.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
in a glaze, the clay is doing the same thing it's doing in your clay. The little
Mm-hmm.
particles are attracting each other. And in the glaze, that helps float the other materials too.
Mm-hmm.
When you calcine the clay, that makes it essentially it's close to your bisque in that
Mm-hmm.
this is no longer a plastic material. If you were to try and shear force it or anything, it would just break. It doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
it's as much rock as the rest of your materials are just rock. And so
Right.
you need that magnetic attraction between the clay particles to
This
make
is
your
my
clay
problem
behave
for
like
sure.
glaze.
Okay, that's definitely my problem.
Mhm,
So, okay, that's really great. So, at first, I'm going to solve that problem of not
mm.
calcining too much, and maybe I'm not even calcining it. And
How much
then
is there? Do you remember? Is it like
I don't,
25%?
yeah, probably at least 25. Yeah.
Just calcine like the top 5%. See if that helps you out.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then I have to solve for the crazing problem.
For the crazy problem, I have a feeling that
Uh-huh.
well actually I won't have feelings on it until you show me the recipe. And then
Okay, okay.
on it.
I will share the recipe.
Okay.
It, yeah. It's terrible liner glaze, it turns out. It was like a liner glaze I was using. I guess it worked with the clay body that I was using for a while,
Mm,
but then on everything else, it's like terribly crazes. At least when I
mm.
added the chrome, like the crazing lines separated out. So it has super
Oh,
tight crazes,
mhm.
crazing lines as a liner glaze. And then the green, yeah, like the lines separate out.
Oh,
So
that's
it's not as
actually
bad.
that's yeah, that's not as bad. So
Yeah.
it's moving in the right direction when you turn it into a green at least.
Yes.
And that also makes me think that it's probably not that you're not dissolving all of the silica because chrome is very refractory and so less will dissolve into a glaze that has chrome in it.
Hmm.
If your problem was that you were not dissolving all of the silica, um, that can cause crazing because silica that melts into the glass and then solidifies into glass is very low thermal expansion, whereas undissolved crystalline quartz is very high thermal expansion. And so if you have undissolved crystalline quartz that's not going into the melt, that can cause crazing when it would cause a very like a crazing when you wouldn't normally expect there to be crazing, like in a glaze that has a lot of silica and alumina. And it would also
Hmm.
make it so that when you take out silica, you would get less crazing, which is not normally what you would expect to happen.
Right. Usually you
Um,
would add
mhm.
silica to reduce crazing. Is that right?
Yeah, usually you
Hmm.
on this thing that Matt Cat really likes, that's the stall chart. There's a line,
Hmm.
it's the crazing line. That's where you get low silica and alumina, things start to craze. And where that line is changes depending on where your clay body is, on where the rest of the glaze is. So it's not actually like the theoretical line is not something you should trust, but
Okay.
the concept of the line, where as you get more silica and alumina, you get less crazing, generally applies so long as you don't run into the issue of undissolved silica being in there.
Okay.
And if you do have that issue, that's when fused silica can be really helpful because you take already melted amorphous silica, which not only incorporates in the melt easier, but even if it doesn't incorporate in the melt, it won't be undissolved crystalline quartz. So you won't
Is
have
that is fused silica different from frit?
Fused silica is different from frit in that the frits that we use as chemists are technical glass that targets a specific chemistry. And then
Hmm.
when they mix that glass, they then powder it. And that's what makes it a frit. Um, and so I guess it would be a silica only frit technically, but nobody's
Okay.
going to call it that. They're going to call it fused
Fused
silica,
silica. Okay.
amorphous silica. They might refer to it as the brand names Rancosil or Emrys also manufactures it. Actually, Rancosil is rebagged. Emrys manufactures it as Tecosil.
So,
Hmm. So if we
okay.
find Rancosil, Tecosil, fused silica, those are all just same brand names for fused silica.
Okay. And
That's
then can you
amorphous silica.
can you just say one more time? I think my brain is
Mhm.
cooked at this point. That fused silica. If you were saying something like
Mhm.
if not all the silica is like melting into like
Yeah,
is
so like if you have a glaze that's not taking in all the silica, if you put
hmm
in place of the crystalline quartz silica, if you put fused silica in its place,
right. Hmm.
one, that does help melt it. If it's still having the issue where it's not melting all of the silica, then if you're using fused silica, then you already have amorphous silica, which means it's low thermal expansion compared
Uh-huh.
to the crystalline quartz.
I'm writing these down, and then that's the last thing I'm gonna write down.
Uh, I
Uh,
am late for cat dinner anyway, so
yes, yes, I think
probably
it's good
go.
timing. Yeah, Ray, thank you so much. It's just
Mhm.
absolutely incredible, and I look forward to like really feeling like the grok, you know. And I'll definitely let you know how it goes with this new recipe.
Yeah, and let me know if you have any questions at all. I love to answer questions, as you can see.
I know you're the best. Okay, and you feel good about me posting this in the group?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Okay, great.
All right.
Okay, say hi to those cats.
I will. I will give them kisses
Yeah.
on their little
And
heads.
and feel better soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.